Hi, folks. Dan Webster here, back at the dining table telling another story. I'm using the dining table because it's where I learned to tell stories and listen to stories with my family when I was young. So I've been around a lot of dining tables as a pastor, lots of good chicken. Anyway, I was sharing a story the other day about my first church while I was a student in seminary. I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. The church was having a revival when Nell and I came back from a vacation. I'd preached a couple of sermons, but I had not yet been called to be the pastor. They were still testing me out. And so I decided to head up on, I think it was maybe a Thursday night, to attend this revival at the church. Well, it was as many revivals. There was lots of loud music and lots of hand clapping and praising the Lord and all kinds of good stuff. Good sermon. And at the end of that sermon, several people came forward and made professions of faith. That would happen the next two nights, Friday night and Saturday night as well. People would join the church. And then I was informed that while they expected me on Sunday, that I didn't have to do anything, just be there. And so Nell and I came up, we went to church. There was a big potluck dinner there. It was wonderful. And then they told me, now what's next is we're going to baptize all the people who made professions of faith this week. I said, okay. And I started thinking about the church. I come out of a tradition that baptizes people when they're a little older, at least 12 years old. But most of the people who had joined this church during the revival were significantly older than that. And the practice in my old tradition was baptism by immersion, which means dunking people in the water. Well, I'd looked around the church and there was not a baptistry inside the building. There was a creek across the way that I would discover sometimes became a river. And I thought, I don't think that creek is going to be deep enough to do a baptism. And I was informed indeed it wasn't. We were going to go to Zeffie's cow pond to do the baptisms. Now, I grew up with cow pastures behind my house. Jump the fence, go play among the cows. I knew what a cow pond looked like, and it was not going to be like any baptistry I'd ever seen in any church before or since. So there we were, the whole church gathered, and I think there were like 13 people being baptized that day. It was a good number. And we are there, and a couple of the men take a tobacco stick. Now, a tobacco stick is about 3.5, probably not 4 feet long, but it is what, after you cut tobacco, you hang the tobacco on up in the barn so it can dry appropriately. So every family had tobacco sticks in this church. So a couple of the men were going out along the bottom of the cow pond with the tobacco sticks, trying to find a place that was solid enough for the minister to stand and for the person being baptized to stand without slipping down. I'm watching this with utter fascination, but the other thing I am noticing very clearly is that it's a cow pond. Floating along on the top is algae and muck and, frankly, cow crap. I am not at all thinking this is a hygienic thing that is about to happen. As somebody is washed in the blood, I'm thinking they're being washed in the crud. The moment comes, we gather, the minister steps out into the water with his Bible. He reads a few verses about baptism, and the congregation begins to sing. And we're singing, "Shall we gather at the river?" This is what happens when you tell stories and your wife is baking at the same time. Shall we gather at the river where bright angel feet have trod? We're singing, but all I'm thinking as I'm looking at this mud and this crud floating along on the top of this cow pond is, this ain't no river. one of the gentlemen in the church that I did not yet know, but would come to find to be a very good friend. He's very seriously singing, and he sort of sidles up to me and he bumps me with his elbow, and he says, "Boy, look around you here. This is a congregation that looks like you're going to be serving for the next few years." Nodded my head. I said, "I hope so." Poked me with his shoulder again and said, "Boy, I want you to look around at this water. See all that stuff floating there?" "Yes, sir." "That's the sins of this entire congregation floating on the top of the water." I'm not very often struck dumb, but I had no response to what he had just said until I heard him go, and grin.